Babels lost pole to 93 as soon as the lights turned green, and found himself third, while 93 pulled out a lead. Into lap 3, VC Most, Fullness, Edin and RL20 were fighting at the back, the latter losing control in the Senna S. Several drivers fouled up there, and learned the hard way how slow it is to pay a penalty on the following straight. Kicking off the first round of pit stops, Babel and BINARYTHEORY went in, and Oyub moved up to second. Further back, Binary Theory and Neutron were in a close battle for third. Binary Theory got a small bump, and being distracted, he clipped the Senna S. This earned him a penalty, and he lost much time paying it off, allowing Neutron to slip past. On lap 12, Babels was leading the race. Unable to get past, 93 was flashing his headlights as though Babels were a back marker, and BINARYTHEORY caught up before Babels pitted again. Once he was back out, he was involved in a three-way fight for fifth, and soon found himself trapped in a melee between drivers of Renegade and One Racing Esports. Later, he clashed with Oyub and got past him on lap 22, only to pit again at the end of that lap. Toward the end of the race, he battled with BINARYTHEORY, who was losing ground. Seemingly having misjudged his fuel strategy, BINARYTHEORY had to come in again with only 2 laps remaining. 93 won with a tremendous lead, with Oyub second and Neutron third. Judoka made a clean break for it ahead of a jostling and chaotic pack. From the back of the grid, reserve driver Bruces took advantage of the messy start to get to 8th. Daniel made a desperate dive on the inside of Mop Racer, but he overshot and couldn't make it stick. Mop was unsettled and took turn 3 wide. Without warning, Bruces sailed right up the inside of them both and claimed 6th place. 3 laps later, Bruces was passing X11 and was rapidly emerging as a star in his own right, now 4th and still hungry for more. On lap 8, he repeated his earlier move at turn 8 to pass DJ, but DJ took a very wide line and Bruces picked up a penalty cutting the inside. Things were also heating up among the back markers, with 305 Racing, Vlave and Tony fighting for 11th. While there was a degree of contact, the battle continued without catastrophe. The same could not be said of a battle for 5th that was going on at the same time, and around Pinherino, Fabuki nudged Mop Racer into a spin, but he was gentlemanly enough to hand the position back. Dawson and DJ were both beginning to challenge Judoka for the lead, and Bruces was bearing down hard on them all. Dawson lost second to the audacious DJ, and the pack ran 2x2 up to turn 4. DJ snatched the lead from Judoka, and Bruces, who still hadn't paid off his penalty, slipped through the inside. It looked like it was all over for Dawson, who lost 2 places within 30 seconds. The following lap, Bruces pulled off exactly the same trick against Judoka, and having started at the back, his sights were now on the lead. Tony was attempting a similar move, but didn't quite have the nerve to make it stick, and he went through the Descida do Lago side by side with 305 Racing. 305 held on, and as the circuit began to tend rightward, he now had the inside line and kept Tony at bay. After pitting, DJ had to get past Fabuki, but the latter kept his line steadfastly. DJ almost lost control of the car, but just about kept it together, hanging on by a thread. Tony and Vlave got into a duel, which saw the 2 drivers parrying and riposting to the end of the race, with quarter neither offered nor taken. Through strategy, Dawson was able to inherit the lead after the last round of pit stops, and with only 1 lap to go, as he was closely followed by the astonishing Bruces. With back markers ahead, his desperation to get by was quickly showing. Tony and Vlave were still fighting, and Dawson's situation became more and more desperate, with Bruces breathing down his neck, but at last he was able to squeeze by, and Bruces was not able to pounce. So it was that Dawson was the victor, but Bruces was the star in second. Judoka finished third. Volex Esports held the front row of the grid, but Nova's start was poor and he slipped back to third. A good few of the drivers were still in double file into Sector 3 and fighting fiercely. But at the front the order was clear: Felix, Wittmann, Nova. But then disaster for Wittmann as he lost it under heavy braking and went right off the course. He scrambled back on and into 5th position. Now the Italian, Pacito, was in with a shot and closed in on the race leaders. On lap 3 he was able to go down the inside of Felix and snatch second, but the pass was messy and he was caught out by the treacherous concrete strip on the outside. Even so, he managed to hold Felix off and kept his position for the time being. Wittmann was not having such a good time, slipping down into 6th, thanks to some very aggressive positioning by Will. The race after that point was largely uneventful. In the final round of pit stops, Nova had already pulled out a strong lead against Felix and Pachito. It looked like Felix might have him, but it was only an illusion, and the triumphant Nova crossed the line with Felix second and Pachito third. The action started in a cloud of tyre smoke, Nunu having trouble getting his Mustang's power down. Chewy and Fives got clean away, and in the midfield a series of knocks wiped out Fernando Riff, who brought his car back round in a beautiful manoeuvre. Nevertheless, he was at the back and had his work cut out for him. In lap 2, Thanatos went to outrake Fives, who could see what was coming and tried for a switchback move. Thanatos had the speed advantage and entered Ferradura just ahead, while Shifter came up from behind. Shifter was unsuccessful and fell back to where Wholesale was keen to pass him. They ran side by side as Thanatos and Fives had done, but Wholesale's pass was far more decisive. After only 6 laps, Fernando overtook both of them, carving his way through the midfield from last place. By the end, as Chewy won a race that he led from start to finish, Fernando claimed a second place more bitterly and thoroughly earned. Thanatos came in at 3rd position. And so that concludes round 2. Looking at the race results, we can see good news for DNA, Kinetic, Turismo and for Volex. Team Superfast also picked up valuable points from Session 4, but with 3 wins out of 5, Volex have the most to boast about. Now that 2 out of the 9 rounds are completed, we'll begin to see a kind of pecking order start to develop, but the potential for the season is still wide open with 7 rounds yet to go. Looking at the championship standings, surprise surprise, it's Volex at the top of the board. Thanks to bruises as reserve driver, Lam has held on to 3rd place. Will Volex keep up their winning streak? We'll find out next time on the 6th of October at Suzuka. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date, and take a look at the sponsor for this season, a computer game I made myself so I could pretend to be a slightly less obsessive compulsive version of Ron Dennis. These eSGT videos are made possible by Formula XD, a racing team strategy game that puts you in the role of team manager. You'll hire drivers, deal with engine suppliers, get loans and sponsorship, and direct R&D, and then control race strategy as your drivers duke it out on the track. It's not going to be easy. You'll start at the bottom and try to take the ultimate prize of Constructors' Championship over the career mode, or face a series of short challenge scenarios. On the way you'll deal with extreme weather, cheating engineers, stray animals, prima donna drivers and even mad bombers. Formula XD is available on Steam and itch. The only question is, can you manage?